Before we go any further, I want to talk a minute about allegory. Allegory, let's say, is a story that can be read on two or more levels. The literal, which is what the words specifically say in a concrete sense, and the figurative, what they can turn into. Biblical allegory generally reads as a portrait of two worlds, the physical and the spiritual. The physical world acts as a revelation or revealing of the spiritual. So they act more or less in tandem. One is inextricably connected to the other. Throughout history, allegory has been a favorite mode, you could say. In the ancient era, you can see it Plato's famous Allegory of the Cave, where objective reality is characterized as shadows on a wall. In the medieval era, in Boethius's Consolation of Philosophy, the classical philosophical tradition takes on a personified form as Lady Philosophy, who then guides Boethius as a prisoner awaiting death to a kind of intellectual salvation. Or even in the contemporary era, where a movie like Forrest Gump has a character who personifies the confused America struggling to negotiate a tumultuous period in history. Allegory makes stories out of ideals. The abstract becomes real. Allegory is more than just symbolism. A story is allegorical when it presents a fully integrated system of symbols that can be interpreted together as a coherent whole. Hence, in Forrest Gump, Forrest has to find his way through life, batted around by and tugged between the examples of his friend Jenny, who represents the rootlessness of liberal hippie culture, and Lieutenant Dan, who represents the rigid egotism of conservative traditionalism. All this while he is guided by the inspiration of his mother as a voice of faith, endurance, and humility. Allegory takes an idea and argues for that idea. It is inherently didactic. It wants to teach you something. A simple story is more of a parable. We find a lot of those in the Bible too. But allegories are generally more puzzling and more elaborate. Of course, most sophisticated literature can be read on more than one level. That is generally the primary distinction for great literature. And allegoresis, the act of reading allegorically, is often criticized for being misapplied. We don't need to concern ourselves with that. Author's intention is irrelevant. Whether or not something was written as an allegory is always debatable and ultimately serves no purpose. We only need to care about how something can be read as an allegory. And if it can, what's the effect of reading it that way? Well, a couple of ideas. As mentioned, stories are identifiable and memorable. Thus, stories are persuasive. The sophistication of an allegory can imply a sophistication of intellect. If you are impressed that somebody can construct something so rich, so complex, so nuanced, you generally respect that person a little bit more. You might not admit it, but that is somebody who strikes you as being very intelligent. Construction, though, of that allegory mirrors in many ways the construction of the universe. And here's where it starts to get complex. The complexity of the allegory mirrors the ultimate unknowability of God. In the Middle Ages particularly, allegory was essentially the default mode of composition and poetic interpretation. Scholars, readers, thought that a complicated work of art needs to be very minutely and finely deconstructed so that it can be interpreted. And this is the essential mode of interpreting the world. The medieval mind would look up and see all of the universe, all of creation, as a great mystery. This is well before the era of science. And they had no idea, the people of the medieval era, in Europe especially, had no idea how things worked. And so they would look at nature, they would look at the world around them and try and interpret the mind of God, interpret the intention, interpret the meaning of objective reality as the manifestation, the realization of God's will. So reading allegory, reading allegorical literature, sharpens that tool, that ability to see God's will. Readers of allegory are rewarded ultimately with their improving skill for perceiving God's will, for the ability to see the divine within the world. But look what this does. Writers of allegory can then position themselves within the place of God. Because if God is responsible for constructing this elaborate allegory of creation, then a writer who does the same on a literary level is also a kind of God. And that's a position of great power. Now remember, I said allegory is didactic. Allegory is persuasive. Allegory wants you to think a certain way about something. It's trying to make its case. Allegory is power. Be aware of it, or be its victim.